Hi, and welcome to Sinatra CRUD app episode 2. The goal of today's episode is going to be to create the outline and the initial implementation of our contacts controller. We will end up leveraging our model somewhat, but first we're going to create the skeleton. So we will branch from master, just always a great habit to be in before you get started. And we're going to add contacts controller, just like that. And then the other thing that I'm going to do is bring up my server with Shotgun just to make sure that everything is still running. There we go. Hello world is still there, so Shotgun is still working. Okay, now that we know that we still have a working web application, I'm going to leave the server running here and I'll have another tab open. Given that, we'll go ahead and get started editing. So I have my Atom editor here, and I've already outlined the RESTful actions that we're going to implement. You'll notice our get slash that says hello world just to let us know that things are working. That's still here. And now we're going to actually implement an outline for all of our RESTful actions. So when it comes to a contact, the index page is going to be get slash contacts. And for right now, we're just going to have placeholders here. So this is the contacts index action. And I'm going to go ahead and copy this for the other get requests. New is a get request, show is a get request, and edit is a get request. Now the paths are going to be a little bit different. So this will be contacts slash new, and it is the new action. This will be contacts slash ID. And this is going to match some identifier. In our case, it's going to be a number 1, 2, 3 to identify a contact. So it won't actually come in as ID. The path that you see will have the number there, and then Sinatra will put that in the params hash, and we'll look at that a little bit later. So this is the contacts show action, and the edit needs the ID, and we say edit at the end. This is the contacts edit action. Now that we have the 4 get routes done, we'll implement the create, update, and delete routes, which use different HTTP verbs. So create is going to use a post, and it's going to post to slash contacts. It's going to be adding something to the collection. And we'll add a similar placeholder message here. This is the contacts create action. The update is going to be a patch or a put. We're going to support both in this case. So we can say patch and we can say put. And these are going to be updating a certain contact, so we need an identifier to know which one we're updating. So both of these are going to be the update action. And then the last one is delete. And it's going to be the same path, except the verb is going to be delete. So notice that we have ID here all the way through to delete. So all of these actions are referred to as member actions. They act on a particular member resource, in this case contacts. All of these actions are affecting exactly one contact. The ones above it do not have ID in the path. Those are what we call collection actions. Index is going to show us all the contacts in the entire collection. New is going to give us a form that allows us to create a new contact to add to the collection. Post will actually create that contact that we're adding to the collection. The rest, show is going to show us an individual contact. Edit is going to give us the form that will allow us to edit an individual contact. Patch or put for the update action is going to actually do the update to that individual contact, and delete will delete that individual contact. Now that we have our actions set up, we'll be able to test our GET requests right in the browser. So we'll go to localhost, and first we'll try the index action. So there we have the contacts index action shows up. and we'll try the show. So we can just pick any ID that we want. Right now we're not actually looking for a contact. So there's the show action. That's perfect. We'll try the edit action as well. That works. And lastly, the new action. Cool, and that's there too. So we know that our routes are working correctly. When an end user puts in a particular URL in the browser, then it hits the correct route in our controller, and now we can implement what we actually want to do to manage contacts through this RESTful routing. Now that we know that our skeleton controller is working and that the paths that our users put into the browser are hitting the correct routes in our controller file, we can move on to implementing the model part of the controller actions and have our model and controller interact with each other. Before we get started, we're going to need at least one contact in our database. If you did episode 1.5, you already have a handful in there. But if not, we're going to create at least one just using the console so that we have something to work with when we're practicing with our RESTful routes. So we can come in and open up our console. And then in order to see what we need for a contact, I'll just do contact.new, and then I can see the fields that are available to me. ID will be generated, but the other three I'll need to create. So I'll go ahead and directly create a contact. Okay, now that we know we have at least one contact in the database, we can work on having our model and controller interact. The first place that we're going to do that is with the show action to make sure that we can get at least one contact to show up. And I mentioned earlier about the params hash. So before we do anything else, I'm just going to do a puts params here so you can see what the params hash looks like given this action. So I'll reload the show action, and then we can look here, and this is what our params actions look like. This is what our params hash looks like. And you can ignore the splat and the captures for now, but you'll see that it has an ID of 1 here. And that's how we identify what contact our user is looking for. So the first step that we take here is we're going to create an instance variable called contact, and we're going to use active records find, and we're going to use that in conjunction with the params hash, and we're going to look for the ID. Now here I'm passing it a symbol. When I do a puts, it shows the key as a string, but they will both work. So we'll go ahead and do that. And then the simplest thing that we can do to make sure that we have a contact is look at their email. We know that that is required, so we're not going to have any empty email addresses in our database. So let's reload and see what we get. So our contact number 1 has hello@hello.com. I will switch to the contact I just created, and there's marketexample.com. So we can see that we're able to identify a contact in our path, and then in our show action, we're able to take our controller and then use our model to get the correct data based on the param that was passed in, and then put that out to the screen. Now we'll get more complicated or complex with our views. Right now we're just making sure that the interaction between the model and the controller works properly, and we'll get more advanced views as we go forward. Now that we have things working for one contact, we're going to move to the index action and see if we can get it working for all the contacts. Similar to the show action, we're going to set up an instance variable. This time we'll use the plural form contacts and the active record method all. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to map this, use one of the enumerable methods to get each individual contact, and more specifically get their email here. Because we know that worked down here and we were able to detect finding the right contact there. And then I'm going to take the outcome, which is going to be another array containing just the emails, and do a 2s on that. So I'll move over here and we'll hit the index action. And here we'll see that all of our contacts have come out. Now, if you didn't do any of the seed data, you may only have one here, and that's perfectly fine. What you want to look for is that you have the square brackets to indicate a collection, in this case in an array, showing all of your contacts. And if you like, you can go into the console and create some more just to see more contacts show up here, and then you can put different IDs in for the show page. But that's going to wrap it up for this episode. And to recap, what we've done is created a skeleton for all of our RESTful routes, and then we dug in and we coordinated the model with both the show action and the index action to make sure both of those worked. In the next episode, we'll create a more advanced view for those two actions so you can see the value of using all three model view controller together. So we'll see you then.